Welcome to a 90 SpinTires and a map we haven't seen before until very recently when we had new mod types added on in the form of maps, and this is one of the ones that are quite nice. It's the only one I've tried, fairly highly reviewed, many stars on Steam. I do recommend it so far, it's very nice indeed. We're up here in this corner, we'll be driving to that lumber mill, or indeed that lumber mill over there. And that's about it for now. I probably won't care much about this game until we've loaded this up here. I just need to remember how this works. Something is blocking. Aha! I know what is. It's a crane, so we just lift it up. Right, and then we try and get some more. Something's blocking. It's Medic Bro. No, it's not. There we go. We'll slot this one down. I do need to think while I do this because I'm a man and I have to do complicated things. Some of these controls are inverted, which my mind doesn't really work in. Furthermore, I'm just on the cusp of being properly ill. Not really ill, just sort of slightly ill. I just feel a bit off, felt off all week, so been taking it very slow this whole week to try and prevent a proper illness. I don't really want to go into that. Pretty much all of my family either were ill in the last week or is currently ill, which is great. So I'm desperately trying to avoid all of that because it's just not fun. I'll go ahead and grab this piece up here. The ironic thing is that I spend a lot of Saturday on doing, well, not necessarily this, but more sort of the wood bits from my summer car. Just in a smaller and not quite that way. Had to help out some family moving some wooden logs or firewood from where the tractor or lorry or whatever dropped it off at the place of a residence, and yeah, it was lovely back-breaking work. I got it done, and I don't know if it was that, probably was, or it was the fact that I wore shorts the following day because it was 15 degrees and I'm Scandinavian, so that's pretty much summer for me. So I wasn't really feeling great all week, trying to recover. And we will set off, and I will try and ignore the game as we talk. This will sort of be a bit more of a podcasty type of talky thing. If you're not really interested in that, that's just what's here, and sorry about that if you're not looking for that. I will give this a whirl. We can talk about that, and we can move on to... I've got myself stuck, great. So that was that whole fourth wall breaky thingy, completely out of the window. But I think I turned it around, like I will turn this around for everybody who's currently listening. As we don't really know what's going to happen in the future. It seems that everybody in the world has decided that the best way to do democracy is using Twitter. Well, certainly some of the most important people, that being the Orange President of the United States, however long that may last, because basically the judge is still out on that whole mess. But so far, still the president, and so far, no nuclear war, just yet. But I mean, it's what, Thursday today? By noon tomorrow, that could all have been changed, and it doesn't really matter where in the world you're from. That noon could pretty much just affect everything, really, which is fucking great, am I right? It's just, yeah, maybe not threaten war on Twitter. Like, when you said before, was it like 2013? Like, go out and go, oh no, why would you announce that we're going to bomb a country? Why would we do that? That gives them a chance to prepare. And then the cunt goes out and does exactly the same thing. Yeah, we shouldn't be surprised though, because pretty much his diplomacy is related to pretty much Twitter in every way. Like, I don't know why he bothers hiring on, like, ambassadors and all of that, because he just does everything on Twitter anyway. And as far as we know, he just goes back on everything that's been planned and just does things exactly as he wants to, which is great for the world, because we just, you know, love not being stable. And of course, he's very strong. Politically, he stands very strong. I mean, he gets his things done. Like, the wall that was meant to be built. Oh, yes. And like the immigration ban, which went through without a hitch and hasn't caused any problems in terms at all. Oh no. Or, you know, like the trade war that happened with China, that were really going to stop them out here and it was going to benefit America greatly. Oh yeah, that really went well for him, didn't it? Anyway, that's just culling basically. I'm culling viewers now. If you don't like that, go away basically, because that's how I think. And it's pretty much the same with Britain, which we saw with their European Parliament's April Fool's joke, which was one of the funnier ones. It's pretty much the only funny one, I think. where they went out and announced that they would now have all blue passports for every European passport issued, which is just fucking hilarious, because the official not by EU Parliament is now literally taking the piss of Brexit, which I am 100% aboard, because really we need to make a joke out of it, very much like we need to make a joke out of pretty much any comic or famous person who tends to fuck up a bit, like Jimmy Carr and his tax dodging. He may have paid it back, he may have taken full responsibility, I'll give him credit for that, he may have handled it perfectly, but he still needs to be named and shamed and made fun of all the time, so it maintains its sort of, undesirable status as a tax dodger, much like Jeremy Clarkson needs to be remembered for punching a person in the face because he couldn't serve him hot lunch the following day. Also, he was a bit drunk at the time, which makes some of the jokes in the recent Grand Tour series a little bit off-putting, but that's for a later point, I would suspect. As we then carefully segue away from that whole war thing. We don't know what's going to happen. I feel like we've sort of gone beyond the point where we had any real chance of intervening in Syria. We should have done that, I don't know, several years ago. But we just decided, nope, we don't want to have another Iraq, quite sensibly so, because that didn't really go well. Or rather, it didn't go well because nobody had any plans or ideas about what to do once we've gotten rid of Saddam. It was sort of like, oh shit, what do we do now? And everybody winged it. And it didn't go well for Iraq, did it? They had a taste of democracy, true. Something like a couple of hundred to like over 1,000 people ran for their elections, like the first election. And everybody just voted along their tribal lines because, surprise, people who don't have democracy don't really have a chance of actually doing democracy properly. Certainly not when you don't know what a country is. You sort of view yourself as a tribe rather than a big nation. Sort of like if you lived, I don't know, on a street in New York and all you ever voted for was what concerned the people of that street in New York. There you have what's going on in those parts of the world. Anyway, we lost all credibility in terms of Syria when Russia decided that they could sweep in and take control, which is pretty much what should have been expected from everybody from the start, because that's what Russia do. It's pretty much played right into their hands, and I even think the current instability and the threat of war and all of that nonsense is exactly what they want. They don't really want America to be stable or be a strong ally. I mean, Russia's never really been interested in those kind of business. They've only really ever been interested in causing a lot of problems for, well, just about everybody that they have around. The interest in destabilising is the word I'm trying to find, I suppose, rather than have it as an ally. That's what Russia's done throughout the years. I mean, dating back to World War II, with all of their partisan efforts on the Eastern Front, where they tried to infiltrate troops behind the front lines of the Germans, and basically tried to upset everything back then, make everything a bit more difficult for them. And it worked pretty bloody well, because the Eastern Front was hell, as we all know. And that was partly due to the constant threat of partisans. These days we would probably call them guerrillas or insurgents, but whatever. And then later on in like Korea, where it was backed by the communists, similar front in Vietnam. Although that was mostly China that lended support there, but it's the same principle of destabilising in a region. And they did rather successfully, I would suggest, in putting America under pressure there. And they did the same thing in Oman, a nation that was supported by the British. And I don't think a lot of people really know what went on there. But they had a communist-backed insurgency, pretty much the same thing in Vietnam, around the same time as Vietnam as well. But it went a bit more quiet. It was pretty much a special forces only thing, supported by local forces. And by local forces, I mean the local air force mostly, which was mostly made up of RAF pilots seconded to them, so as to make it, local without being local. That's kind of how those things work. But that was communist-backed, trained there in, I believe, like the Ukraine and Moscow and those places. So basically that was them again trying to destabilise the region to reduce the Allies' influence, or certainly NATO's influence, the Western powers' influence. We've seen that in many other places since then. And it's just what they do, Russia. They don't want America to be a strong ally to them. That's not why they backed Trump. They did it to destabilise it so they can take play a role in the rest of the world, especially parts of the world that the US really dominate, such as the Middle East, where since then we've seen them take a base in Syria, and they've announced that they will stay in Syria for quite a long time. And that's just to be expected, really. That's what they do. So it's a bit of a shame, really. Also with the whole thing in Salisbury, which, by the way, no journalist from Denmark can pronounce Salisbury correct. I've heard every way pronouncing it other than the correct way, which is just fantastic. I look forward to hear about it, just to hear them butcher that name. And they do it repeatedly, over and over again, and it's delightful. Obviously, not quite so delightful when you think that a foreign power quite likely tried to murder 2 people. Technically, probably only 1 person. I mean, it's not like it's the first time they did it with... Was it Alexander Litvinenko or Nikolai Litvinenko? Or whatever he was called anyway, an ex-KGB spy in London was poisoned by, I want to say, polonium-224? Or something like that. It's a long time ago anyway, and he died in hospital after radiation poisoning. I don't think they could ever prove it was Russia, much like they won't be able to prove that it was Russia this time round as well in Salisbury. But it probably was, just, nice to get some proper information given the fact that we kicked out 2 Russian diplomats and they responded by kicking out 2 diplomats from Russia. The only difference is there was something like 34 diplomats in Denmark, whereas we have like 9 diplomats in Russia, so we, yet again, just spoil it for ourselves, but that's Denmark for you. Leave it to us to fuck up everything, completely unintended. And that's just the wars. I mean, we don't know if we're going to have massive nuclear war any given time. We've been lucky, my generation. I'm from 1990. Some people certainly celebrated the fall of the wall with a big bang. So I've been lucky. I haven't lived through that constant threat, but we're doing it now, and yay for, knowing what our parents went through, right? But then again, it's probably for the best, given all of the nationalism and all of that that's coming up, which isn't great. I feel like that's been given a go over the years. Never really went well. One of the most prominent ones recently were, like Serbia and the Balkans and the death of Yugoslavia. Incidentally, there's a great documentary on that from the BBC alongside, I think it was STV, and I even want to say Yle as well, which is Finnish television. For those who don't know, doesn't really matter. But it's really good on the death of Yugoslavia. I recommend that one heartedly because there's a lot of lessons to be learned even today. Even though technically it happened like more than 20 years ago, which is a bit weird to think of. Something that I vaguely remember. Although it happened like early 90s, so I don't know why I would remember it. We probably learned about it in school or something, which is why I remember it. I'm going the right way, good. So that's nice. Well, it's not nice, because Srebrenica happened, and that wasn't a nice thing. That, incidentally, including what we're now hearing about Syria and all of that, with the whole UN veto thing, which is a stupid idea. Like, what's the point of having that kind of stuff if one nation could just go, no, I don't want that, that's a stupid idea. It just doesn't work. That's the whole point. Because imagine if that was going on during World War II. We had a United Nations. I know there's technically something called the League of Nations and whatever. But, it's not really the same thing. Just imagine they're gone in, the Germans are killing all of, the Jews and that. And then Germany would just go, no, we can't have that. We're not doing that. No. We are vetoing any measures. And then the rest of the world just go, I don't want that. I mean, that's just what's going on here. Maybe it's a good thing that Russia comes back so the rest of the world gets to grow a backbone again, because we seem to have thoroughly lost it. I mean, look at the bloody British. These days they give up just the sight of a bit of snow. Christ alive, and that's a nation who bloody well made it through and ruled half the world. Now they tut at snow. Or somebody putting a bag on a train, which I saw on Twitter the other day. Which is just annoying, really. Just like, come on, you guys used to rule the world, admittedly by oppressing literally everybody there. Thankfully, we weren't one of them. We were just the victims of their careless bombardment over the years. Lord Nelson, or Admiral Nelson, whatever he was called, he bombed Copenhagen. Now, that's fully understandable. I fully get why he would want to do that. It's Copenhagen. I mean, who wouldn't want to firebomb Copenhagen? But he did it. There's a big difference between wanting to do it, which literally everybody outside of Copenhagen in Denmark has wanted to do pretty much every day for like the last 1,000 or so years that Copenhagen has existed, probably. But actually doing it, boy, that's not right. We can't have that. That's unacceptable. But, let bygones be bygones on that front. Let's not be bygones with the whole Facebook thing, which I just absolutely loved seeing yesterday on the news. Mr. Zuckerberg being challenged by some senator asked, so would you like to tell us which hotel you stayed in, or the address of the hotel you stayed in? And he was very uncomfortable, squirmed around, went, no, I don't, it's very uncomfortable. And then he was asked if he wanted to share every conversation he's had on his phone in the last week, and he again went, no, that makes me uncomfortable. To which the response was, yeah, that's sort of the point with this whole thing, innit? Which I thought was very nice. Oh, it's so good to see him. Oh, I just love it. I'm not on Facebook. I never have been. I won't be. I think their policies are abhorrent. I saw this coming fucking years and years ago, and I am only slightly smug in the company of people who have tried to talk me onto Facebook, going, oh no, it's fine, they won't do it, and now they've done it. Yes, I'm that smug bastard, and no, I don't mind, and I won't shut up about it. It's just nice to have a bit of schadenfreude every now and then. Sometimes it's nice to be right. Well, it's always nice to be right. But it's nice to be right when it's not me who's also at the same time being sort of like the half victim of this whole thing. So, yay for that. I like being right. I like being right in that way, because that's nice. Feels very nice and warm. Obviously, you know, there's a big issue with the whole thing about everything being logged, and, you know, they'd probably have lots of information on me anyway, because they take everybody who's on there and like go into their phone contacts and all of that and gather information. I've even read that they have shadow profiles of people who aren't on Facebook, just in case, you know, they want to use that information, because they're greedy bastard cunts who deserve nothing more than to die on a fire. By the way, I don't actually mean that. I'm just a bit angry at Facebook because I think they're a load of cunts. But that's not really what matters here. What matters is I was right. And that can move on to Formula 1, which is a lot happier. Mostly, obviously, good to hear that. I wrote his name down, that Ferrari mechanic, poor bloke. It is Francesco Cigarini, if I pronounce that correctly, which I didn't, because he's Italian and I'm not. And I don't know Italian at all, because it's a very confusing language. So, yeah, that's a bit unfortunate, innit? He had a bit of an accident. Well, technically he had quite a bit of an accident. The Ferrari of Kimi Räikkönen was let go, and sort of, I haven't watched the replay of it other than one broadcast, because, oh, that didn't look nice. I don't remember if that was technically broadcast on our television, because I watched it in 4K, which is lovely. Like, Jesus Christ, I did not know that 4K made such a huge difference since I first saw it last year, but bloody hell, Formula 1 looks great in 4K, just absolutely. Oh my word, I've gone submarines. Where's the Swedish journalist? Because that's literally the only thing I need now as a Danish submariner. We just need that thing. By the way, too soon and all that. Don't really care. That's a joke that has to be made as a Dane when it comes to this sort of stuff. Let's just pull myself out here. Notice memberment needed. We can pull through. Sorry, I have to do that. That's just a thing these days. We're sort of like that. It's not really great, but whatever. We will go ahead and just gloss over that. Formula 1, yeah, he's doing better. I think he's actually walking now, obviously with the help of a cane and all of that. But he's walking. He's not, you know, bedridden for months and months with long rehab underway and all of that. That's absolutely great to see. A horrible accident. I knew right away. I mean, I didn't need to see a replay to know that his leg was proper fucked, and it was proper fucked. Christ. I believe he tore his shin and calf bone. Both were completely broken, I believe. Unfortunately, that wasn't the worst sporting injury we had that weekend. That's a professional cyclist on a continental team who rather sadly died. I believe it has been ruled cardiac arrest as a result of a heart defect, which had not been caught at the time he participated in the Paris-Roubaix cycling race, suffered a cardiac arrest and sadly died at hospital, which is very sad. And there's nothing really to add on to that, then it's fucking sad. That somebody who's doing a sport ends up, you know, I believe I saw him on television lying on his back, and, you know, you knew at that point it was pretty bloody bad, but didn't know it was that bad. So yeah, anyway, back to Formula 1, that's happy. Let's talk about Formula 1 happy days. He's up walking, that's absolutely fantastic to see, because it looked bloody nasty. Many things to be learned. I think it's time to maybe review some of the decisions that have been made in the sport regarding certainly the pit stops, because I think that whole automatic pit stops things they've got going on, which I think it is, it certainly looks like it is, perhaps time to review whether or not that's a good idea given, you know, the 3 incidents we've had in 2 races It just doesn't look right. I mean, both the Haas cars last week was released in an unsafe condition. This week we had Kimi Räikkönen, who was released and injured one of his mechanics. That was an unsafe release, in my opinion. Unsafe releases put anyone in danger, not just other competitors. And that was, by every word of that, an unsafe release. And I do hope that Ferrari is punished heavily for it, because that kind of thing should not happen. And just that whole thing needs to be scrapped to a system. They say refueling is dangerous in Formula 1 and they can't have it. But really, you wouldn't have those mistakes. Obviously, you know, speaking in a broad terms here, I can't say that it would never happen during refueling, but it certainly would help to have refueling because you have a lot more time. If you've ever watched an endurance race or watched something like the Australian supercars, you will know that having refueling slows down pit stops and allows for those kind of issues to be worked out during the pit stop window. It's not really a problem when your tyre changes takes longer than it takes to refill the car, which I think overall is a lot safer. And we can talk about the new rules in the WEC later on when that comes relevant, because they've just been stupid in regards to pit stop rules. But that's for another day, I suppose. There's a lot to talk about regarding Formula 1. Bloody hell, Haas is quick. Oh boy. I don't know what they've done, if they've like had magic beans or if they've just made a car that now accommodates Kevin Magnussen's massive balls. Because bloody hell, he's very quick. Like, he's quicker than I expected. I did not expect cars to be where they are. Obviously, what happened in Melbourne was unfortunate. Again, covered that issue. Would have been interesting to see where they could have ended up had it not been for that. But thankfully, it looks like they're strong. Well, certainly in Bahrain. And hopefully that'll carry on for the rest of the year. But we'll wait and see. The jury's still out. Fingers crossed everything will work out well for that. And we will see them be competitors. But bloody hell, I love seeing Honda and the Toro Rossos. Oh my god, that is funny. Oh, I just love seeing them being faster than McLaren. I don't have particularly fond nostalgia for McLaren Honda. Don't really have particular fond nostalgia for McLaren, full stop. I mean, when I was young, it was McLaren Mercedes, and it was not Kimi Räikkönen, but Mika Häkkinen, very similar names, and David Coulthard, who raced together on that team against Eddie Irvine and Michael Schumacher. Yeah, then later Rubens Barrichello, who was brilliant. Number 2 driver, he wasn't hard to be number 2 driver, but he just was anyway. Anyway, that's completely irrelevant here. So that's really what I remember them for. I don't really have particular fond memories of any of that. You know, I couldn't really care that they were back with Honda. I know Senna and that, I don't really regard Senna as being, you know, the best Formula 1 driver. He was a bit Max Verstappen, which I'll get to in a moment. So, you know, that's just fun to see. Just due to Alonso's constant whining on the radio last year. I think I said even last year or the year before that if Alonso spent as much time driving as he did whining on the radio, maybe the team wouldn't be so bad. And it does indeed appear to be the same thing this year. Although we haven't heard any public, you know, complaint for him yet, but certainly the car looks faster and a bit more reliable than with Honda power, but it's not faster than the Toro Rossos. Oh, that just makes me happy to see. Like, I just love that, because I'm sort of like a shit poster. That's what I do. I mean, Formula 1, a lot of money is spent on it, but at the end of the day, I don't take it too seriously. I want people to be safe and all that. But I just have to laugh at those situations, because they were, the trouble they went through last year. Then they went to Toro Rosso, which isn't even a factory team, it's a bloody development team for Red Bull, and they're faster and more reliable. Granted, some of that is down to their driving talent over there. I mean, they've got Pierre Gasly, which appears to be quite fast. Certainly, he finished higher than Kevin did, but I suspect that was down to Grosjean, which we'll come to later. But we can just jump into the race right now, because lap 1 was a bit of a mess. Surprisingly, no damage to Kevin's car. I really was surprised, given the fact that he went off seemingly at every corner, in pretty much the same way as I'm about to on what you're seeing on screen. Yet that wasn't really a great start for him. Just thankfully, Haas has built a fairly decent car this year, unlike last year or the year before. That is great to see, from a Danish standpoint anyway. And then there was a bit of drama. I mean, we had Hamilton, who was quite far down. Started far down, did a decent recovery drive, I thought. but there is the Red Bulls. I mean, I'm laughing even now because I know what happened and it's just too funny. Yeah, it didn't go great. In the first race of the season, Max Verstappen got a bit excited behind Kevin Magnussen and spun out. Then Kevin Magnussen had a tyre fitted badly to his car, which caused him to retire, but he was pretty much holding him back there legitimately. It was almost as if Verstappen, that's the word, I need to get them out here because Kevin's got a V in it as well, which is very confusing when you're talking about Max Verstappen. And he just didn't know how to cope with having a relatively fast driver that wasn't really budging in front of him, and whom he couldn't really do any kind of moves on because it's a Formula 1 car. They can't fucking race each other. Like, there's too much aero going on. If they do one thing with the next generation Rex, get rid of some of the fucking aero. Anyway, back to point. He spun out there. This time round, he went for a overtake on Hamilton, which didn't go brilliantly. 100% Verstappen's fault. There's no other ways about it, even though one of the Danish experts thought it was Hamilton's fault. I don't know why. He was a former racer as well. He would know that you have to leave racing room. That's a rule in Formula 1. You can't just force another driver off the track like that. Initially, I just thought it was a racing incident. I thought that Verstappen was too hooked on trying to pass Alonso. No, I'll get this right. He tried to pass Hamilton, completely not seeing that Alonso was there, or at least trying to take advantage of Alonso being there, or trying to avoid Alonso so as to not be held up behind him on exiting the corner. But seeing the rest of it, he just drove him right off the track, and I don't know why he can't take the blame for that, because that quite clearly was his own fault, and it was only too right that he suffered a puncture over there. And that is my problem with Verstappen. He is too aggressive. He doesn't know when to back out. When you're early on in the race, it's not worth pushing that hard for. You're on lap bloody what? I don't remember what lap it was on, but it was fairly early on in the race. Similar thing with the Kevin incident of Melbourne. You're early on in the race, one of the first laps of the race. Don't be too aggressive. Everybody knows this. He's too aggressive. He doesn't know when to back off. We've seen it over the past couple of years. It hasn't had any consequences for it until now, really. And he's just throwing all of the toys out of his pram, going, oh no, it wasn't my fault. It was Hamilton's fault. You know, it's a kind of move I've always made. Yeah, well, maybe that move is wrong, you dick. Because he is a dickhead, and Hamilton did call him a dickhead after the race, which was quite funny. I mean, just seeing Vettel's response was, oh. I mean, I'm in Formula 1 for the shit posting, and if you get shit posting, that's fucking shit posting. Oh my god, that was brilliant. I think it was asked, I saw a video of it during the press conference where Vettel actually stepped in and told the Dutch journalist to go suck a dick, which was only appropriate, because, you know, I mean, Verstappen drives like a dickhead. He's called a dickhead. Tough shit, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if he's unhappy about it, don't drive like a dickhead. You dickhead. That's just how life works. Because, you know, there's going to be a day when Verstappen is the one doing battle at the front, racing hard, and everybody else in the field will remember how he drives, and so they won't treat him nicely. I had an old boss who said that you will be, or rather he said that you shouldn't walk on the people as you go up, because you will have to pass the same people when you come back down. In terms of, you know, career ladders and all of that. Oh, I'm falling off the... I've had poo in my trousers and I'm having it again. This is tight. Oh, no. I need to focus now. So, I'll be very, very quiet here. A lot of excrement is currently evacuating my bowels. But I think I made it. So, back to talking about Verstappen. Yeah, you sort of have to be careful about these things, because at one point he will be racing some people and they will treat him just as he does there. I mean, had he been racing like in Australian supercars, for example, Verstappen would have been put on the wall a long time ago. And that's sort of the appeal of those cars. If you're a dickhead in those, you'll get turned around. Unless you got Tander, in which case you just happen to turn around Fabian Coulthard whenever you see him. I mean, whenever they get together, one of them ends up on the roof, and it's usually Coulthard in it. Anyway, that's completely irrelevant. Yeah, it's just, you know, sometimes tin tops are nice because you get, you know, sort of payback. Drivers are able to... I'm falling over! Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Yeah, that's a big puddle, innit? Right. I have a truck over here. We can... Oh, that's a big boy. Anyway, yeah, you're just going to have to be careful about those things because it's going to come back to bite you, innit? Otherwise, that was a brilliant race, though. That's not gone brilliantly. Yeah, it was unfortunate that Raikkonen had to retire because that was, you know, a fairly decent race. Otherwise, we had lots of good battles. There was a few things worth noting. I mean, there was the Grosjean and Magnussen incident, which was really bizarre. And like Kevin gave a rather interesting post-race interview for Danish television. He pretty much described that as Grosjean being frustrated and unhappy about how the race went for him. So he sort of lost his temper a bit with that, which I thought was a very interesting take on it. Obviously, there is some team building to be done there. Personally, given what we've seen in the past couple of years with Grosjean, I don't personally understand why he's still with Haas, why he's still in Formula 1 even, because he just doesn't seem to have what it takes. He makes an awful lot of mistakes, even back when he was with Lotus, even though that wasn't Lotus. I hate that. I hate that with Alfa Romeo now. I hate that with Aston Martin and Red Bull, because it's just a naming sponsorship. It's not an Alfa Romeo Sauber. It's a Ferrari engine with somebody took an eraser on it and wrote Alfa Romeo in crayon on top of the Ferrari engine. It's just ridiculous, and I just don't support that kind of charade that's going on with that. It annoys me because it's not honest. Anyway, that's just me complaining about that kind of thing. It doesn't really matter particularly much. I just think it's ridiculous. It's a terrible attempt at getting diversity in a field. Like, it just has nothing to do with it at all. It's just rubbish, really. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, you're talking about Grosjean. He's just really inconsistent, makes lots of mistakes. He did, in fairness, have problems with brakes, and I think they swapped out either from Carbon Industries to Brembo a year or two ago. And that did seem to help him out, and maybe the new car suits him better. He just needs to, like, keep his head on his shoulders when he's driving, because he seems... I know he's a racing driver, and whenever the green light comes on, basically, they lose any kind of common sense, and that's okay, because they're fucking racing drivers. They shouldn't be sensible behind the wheel of a race car. It would just be nice to see him have a head on his shoulders when he's actually driving, because, you know, otherwise it goes wrong for him. I mean, I reckon, and I've seen a fair few comments posted regarding this, that Kevin Magnussen may have finished in front of Pierre Gasly, and your teammate should not result in you doing that when you're on different strategies and at different points in the race. That's just not common sense driving from him, and really, I think there's some stern words to be out there between Günther Steiner and the Frenchman. I'm not saying he's a bad guy or anything like that, I just think he needs to think a bit when he's driving. But bloody well done to both Kevin and Gasly. That's what Pierre Gasly. Bloody hell, getting a Toro Rosso into that high position, fuck me. That guy is either really lucky today, and it'll be very interesting to see how he does for the rest of the season. If he keeps that level of performance up, obviously given that there could be grid penalties and that later on, we don't know yet, it's quite early on. But it certainly will be interesting to see what will happen there, how he will perform, what will happen. I didn't have a chance to see the GP2 races for obvious reasons. Obviously there was my Saturday work hauling efforts, and Sunday's Paris-Roubaix, which I also watched, which was okay. It wasn't the best. Obviously, it can't really be that good when somebody dies during it. So that puts a dampener on the whole thing. It's also very hard to live up to the Ronde van Vlaanderen or the Tour of Flanders we had the Sunday before, which was bloody hell. Like right from the start, they were just going at it. It's one of the few of those longer bike races that I just feel like was worth watching from start to finish. Like usually I can watch most races, I'll usually have them running in the background, and then when things are critical I will sit down and watch it unless it's like one of the really good tours or Vuelta stages, and I'll just watch them from start to finish because they're bloody marvellous. But that Flanders tour was bloody good. Like from start to finish, lots of good moments out there, the cobbles were really nice. It was just a proper good bike race, that. If you were a new cycling fan and you watched that, then bloody well done to you. Because you really had something too worth watching there. Come on, you slow dick! can we not do a winch movement here? Right, okay, maybe we can't put it that way then. So yeah, that was obviously not nice to see all of that go on with it's Michael Golet's death. He's not nice. Peter Sagan won though. I'm not a fan of Peter Sagan. I just don't get it. I mean, he's a very good biker, don't get me wrong. I just don't get all of that personality thing he's got going on. I just think he's a bit annoying, really. But, you know, that's just a personality issue. I can't really discredit his cycling abilities because, you know, he's a multiple world champion and all that. So, you know, I can't really... It's not even jealousy, because fuck me if I can be bothered to cycle for that long. Fucking hell. There's a reason why those people need to feel like they need to use those kind of things that they've got a reputation for using, because it's a fucking tough job. Like, they're tough fucking cunts. I mean, people have finished, like, the bloody Tour de France with broken collarbones. I mean, there were cyclists out here, one of the Danish cyclists who took part, who wasn't even one of the team captains, bloody finished it with a broken finger. Like, people have finished stages with broken wrists. And, like, it is just... I don't understand people who think that cycling isn't a proper sport, because it quite clearly is, with the kind of dangers and things they do. I mean, obviously with the Golet dying, it sort of highlights that. That was a hard issue, though. There was a couple of years ago, there was another biker who died during the Giro, which wasn't nice. That was as a result of a crash. That's probably the most parallels you can have with motorsport, is that both are quite dangerous sports. And with a halo in Formula 1, which I personally think is absolutely ridiculous and stupid and doesn't belong there at all. Nobody really wants it. It's just there. It was brought in far too late. It's not a good solution, and it's just stupid. I mean, motorsport is dangerous. Just full stop. We need to be sensible about it, and we don't need to take unnecessary risks. But I don't think that's the right way of doing it. Either you have an open cockpit car, or you have a closed cockpit car. Don't have any bloody middle ground. None of this half-assed, pussy-footing kind of rubbish. It's just ridiculous. I just don't get it. Just grow a pair. I know there's some commentators out there who like to think, you know, of racing drivers and Formula 1 drivers as, you know, being gladiators and warriors and, you know, that kind of stuff. People who go in there in the ring and they get bloodied and, you know, it's a tough thing. Not with a fucking halo, it isn't. And with that image, no, it's not. No, they're bloody footballers. Bloody hell, Formula 1 drivers, they're not footballers. There may be many things, but they're not footballers. They've got talent. I mean, they drive a car really fast, admittedly. I mean, admittedly, Formula 1 cars these days are more like being a fighter pilot. Like, it's not like driving a normal car like it used to be back when they had, even back when they had sequentials. Or, you know, when they had proper H-pattern shifters. Because fuck me, imagine driving a Formula 1 car with an H-pattern shifter. Now, that's a skill. And that's why I personally think the Australian Supercars is one of the best series out there, because they've got an old-fashioned, admittedly sequential, but still an old-fashioned shifter. And it's just better. They've got a clutch pedal, you've got a rev match. It's just better. If you want to have a driver's sport, you need to have a gear lever. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. Any other talk from Formula 1 is just ridiculous, as far as I'm concerned. I just don't get it. I just think, you know, do it properly if you're going to do it. Anyway, that doesn't matter at all. Incidentally, I just recently discovered one of the old racetracks from France, one of the old road circuits over there. Rheims, if anybody knows that. Bloody hell, that looked like a good track. Not very technical, mind, but it looked good. And I do love those old tracks that were built on public roads. I think they were really special, like the old Le Mans, like I've done a video on. And, what's that one called from... Longford, that's the one. The old Spa as well from R Factor. I mean, they're all of those are available on R Factor. They're just so much... Oh, it's just so cool. Like, that's properly dangerous stuff they did back then. I'm not saying we should go back to that, because it plainly is dangerous. I mean, oh look, a telegraph pole, but it's safe because we put a hay bale in front of it. Go ahead and drive your open cockpit Formula 1 car right past it. No. Wearing, you know, your old school metal crash helmet. Like, those guys were mad. And women, because back then there were bloody more women racing drivers than there is now. Which is a bit weird, given the fact that we've had quite a few. Like, depending on what to watch, if you watch Australian Supercars, you'll know that Simona Di Silvestro is racing in there. She did a fairly decent job at Newcastle. Shame she hasn't been able to, I suppose it's a bit early to say that. They've had, what, 3 rounds, 2 of which were internationally televised, because the Melbourne round was now a championship round. It is not part of the sort of formal Supercars broadcast package, which I weirdly get, because apparently Swedish television has decided that they should have that, and because I have a television package that apparently has the rights for that, it's the same company that broadcasts Supercars in Sweden, they give me that on their, streaming service thing. I mean, it's very nice. I'm not going to complain. It's bloody better quality than you get on Superview, and it's a bloody lot cheaper given the new prices. But you don't get the Melbourne round, which is a shame, because it is a championship round this year. So I've just missed a championship round. Don't know if it was any good. I mean, it's much like the Giro last year, which was exclusively broadcast on Eurosport, and I only have Eurosport 2, not Eurosport 1, so they can go fuck themselves as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what happened in that race, I don't care. So that's the same thing there. It's a very good series though. Best commentary team by far I've seen. I mean, there's a lot to be... Hang on. Oh no, I'm doing the right thing, just stay with it. There's a lot to be said for the IMSA commentary team as well, because they're very good, very skilled in that. But the Supercars commentary team's ability to convey information, both from a driver's point of view and from the team's point of view, with Mark Scaife and Neil Crompton in the booth, who are both former drivers with lots of years commentary experience. I mean, they've been given some sort of professional commentary coaching, they just have had to. Because it's not like some of the other commentators. I mean, in Formula 1, we are blessed with having Tom Christensen commentating on Formula 1. Fuck me, that's great. I mean, he's also clerk of the course for some rounds of the championship, so he can't do them all. But when he can, it's bloody brilliant, because he knows a lot about driving. Don't necessarily always agree with him, but he is old school. I rather liked him in the Australian Grand Prix, where one of the drivers, I don't remember who it was, towards the end was complaining about having stomach issues. I think it may have been Carlos Sainz. And Tom's response was basically, yep, 7 laps to go, keep pushing. Just like absolutely no regard for it. Just crack on with it. The sooner you finish, the sooner you get to go out of the car and have a massive shit. Which I like. I mean, that's the only thing you can say. You can't stop the bloody car, because you'll feel a bit funny in your tummy. I mean, if you got to go, go. I mean, the old school is brilliant for that attitude of just, yep, crack on with it. We don't need to get bogged down here and carry on with it. You do need to put on a bit of a Yorkshire accent for that kind of attitude. Because it's the right attitude, really, in that regard. It's the same attitude there is in professional cycling, incidentally, which is why that is just brilliant. I mean, people would fly off at quite high speed, jump back on their bicycle and carry on. I mean, there was a couple of years ago, somebody came off their bike into a barbed wire fencing. That actually happened 2 weeks ago as well. Got back on the bike and carried right on. With like a deep cut into the body, like in the one in the Tour of Flanders. You could literally see the spectators pulling out the barbed wire as he was still entangled in it. And it just, got back on the bike, carried on. I mean, there's still tough cons about. So everybody who says, oh, the current generation, millennials can't be as tough as the people who were during the Second World War and all that. Well, they can. You just got to look in the right places. If you look at footballers, they're all a bunch of fucking crybabies, aren't they? They're no heroes, they're no warriors. They get paid too much, they run about for a couple of hours, kick a ball about, go off, do cocaine, have sex with prostitutes, and that's it. Meanwhile, you've got professional cyclists who do... I mean, granted, if you're one of the big stars, you get paid quite a lot of money. But if you're one of the more regular teammates, of which there are many more of, you spend every day many hours on your bicycle. You go off to many countries, spend a lot of time away from the people you love, and then you come off your bike and you tear off half your leg or tear off the skin rather of your legs out here, and then you're expected to get back on and cycle. That was a brilliant thing like many years ago. It's more than 10 years ago, where they had TV cameras in some of the team cars behind the peloton and all that. where I think it was back during the Team Telecom or Deutsche Telekom days, where Brian Hon was a sporting director on that team, and I think it was Magnus Burkhardt who came off his bike, and I think he broke like his collarbone or something like that, or his wrist or something like that, or a rib. Got back on. It was bleeding obvious that he wouldn't ever finish. He would have to withdraw at the end of the day. And one of the other team members fell back to get some drinks for the rest of the team. That is, you know, those drinks bottles they've got, not like a beer or something like that. Went back there, I mean, he can't do it, he can't pull, he's, you know, seriously injured. To which the response was, "Amus!" Which means he has to. I mean, we're not going to get any use out of him for the rest of the race, so bloody well get up there, work your arse off, because you're going home. They're tough cunts. Like really, footballers. Somebody pushed me. Oh, I fell onto some wet grass. I need to get carried out of the match now and go and lie down so I can try and chat up the paramedics. Bloody wusses. I don't like football, by the way. It's one of those things that I'm really passionate about not liking. It's football. It's one of the very few things that I'm not really... I don't care for it. I'm passionately disliking it. Anyway, I've gone on for far too long. I hope you've enjoyed this video here. I need to go and sort out some dinner because it's nearly 6. And I'm old, so I eat dinner at 6. I think I'll have a bowl of cereal because, you know, I'm slightly not well, so I'm a man, and I'm very weak when I'm not at my peak. I have to be at that zenith in order to perform somewhat recently. Not recently, but decently anyway, so this past week has just been awful. I mean, Sunday, at bloody Peter for dinner, Christ. 2 supercars, that just wrapped up a fantastic Sunday though. Monday, don't even remember what happened on Monday. Don't remember Tuesday either. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Thank you for watching. Hope this has been at least somewhat enjoyable. This has just been basically a podcast, me rambling. Hopefully I'll be back tomorrow, either with an LSPDVR video since I've got that working again. I've just got to realise with car mods and game updates and all that you need to do some things regarding that. I'll either do a video or I might do a live stream tomorrow night. We will wait and see what happens. It all depends on a few things that are outside of my control. But I will see you tomorrow at some point. Goodbye for now.